Okay. Well, great. It's 2 o'clock, and it looks like a lot of people have gotten here. So I guess we will kind of go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jen at Lingan. I'm the Assistant Registrar for Curriculum in the Office of the University Registrar and the editor of the Bulletin. This training session will go over the most common things that you'll encounter when editing your bulletin pages, including opening different sections of your page, managing different types of formatting and tables, and moving your pages forward in the workflow. We'll be hearing today from Bree Bermhall, a software trainer at Leepfrog Technologies, which is the company that develops and supports the CAT software used to manage the bulletin. I will chime in if there are any WashU specific questions, and I will keep an eye on the chat and add any other comments I might have there too. So unless there are any questions at this point, I will go ahead and turn things over to Bree. Thanks everybody for coming.
Perfect. Okay, I've only got you guys for an hour, so I'd like to try to make this pretty quick and concise. Then if you have any questions in about the last 5, 10 minutes, if you haven't already asked them and gotten an answer, then we'll kind of roll back to those. So just starting off with a very quick PowerPoint, we're just going to go over some key elements of the day. So first up, what is within our objectives? First off, we want to ensure that you can understand functions of the top and bottom toolbars. And two, we want to make sure that you feel comfortable making edits to catalog page lists. This is going to be very, very similar to Word. I am assuming we have probably all touched a Word document at some point in our lives. I know I've probably been in about 10 this week. So what's on our agenda that's included to get to those objectives? Well, first off, we'll just talk about the benefits of CourseLeaf. So this is more to, explain why we're the best option here. Then we'll talk about what those basics are. So those basic functions, the basic accessibility, all that good stuff. Then we'll get to the training part, which really isn't too much in training. With this being a refresher, most of you have probably seen this. The big thing to note is something that is coming in the next year is you guys will be going through a software upgrade. At that point, we will likely have another training just to look at the difference in the software at that point. But right now, if you've ever touched it before, you're going to be in a really good spot. And within this training, we'll talk about how do you access your pages, what is some basic editing, so formatting, styling, lists, links, all that good stuff. Then we'll go over the Leepfrog resources that are available to you. And then lastly, there will just be a couple of final comments from your admin. So starting off strong, what are the benefits of CAT, the catalog? First off, it allows students to search for programs and course info easily. This means that it is accessible on all browsers. That does include mobile phones. So first, if for some reason someone wants to look at your catalog on their phone screen, they're going to be able to. They're going to be able to fully navigate through it. All links are going to work. All drop downs are going to work, and it will automatically just change the visibility. The same as if you were doing something on a laptop instead of a desktop. Same thing as if you're doing something on an iPad or a tablet instead of a laptop, so on and so forth. Everything will adjust to the type of device being used. And along with that, that's where we get into that pairing on all devices, laptops, tablets, phones, desktops, anything and everything. I know somebody who found out just because he wanted to that you can in fact pull it up on a 2008 Nintendo. What was it? Oh, the ones that opened up just for fun. He was like, I wonder if it'll work. It does. As well, it does ensure that we do remain ADA compliant, which is very important across the board for all of our clients, as we have found out over the years. So we ensure that we maintain that compliancy. And then it's also just easy to use and search. Now, there are a few basic terms that do get thrown around quite a lot. Again, if you have used this software, you have definitely seen these and or heard these before. So the big one is page owner. The page owner is the first individual or role assigned to make modifications to a page. They're also known as the page editor or page initiator. If you are not the page owner or an admin in the system, you are not going to be able to make edits to a page. As well, within that is start workflow. This is also essentially just the submit or turn it in button. It's in the lower right. You click on it when your edits are done, and it's going to start it up in workflow. Now, something to keep in mind with the start workflow is in CAT specifically, once you have started a page in workflow, you do have the ability to make additional edits. If you make additional edits, what that does is that kind of signals to that page, hey, this has to be approved again. So every time that you edit pages, you started in a workflow, makes it through, it's fully approved. Oh shoot, you realize that you forgot a word. Or, oh, I have a capital instead of a lowercase. I need to change that. Even minor things like that will require the whole workflow. So every time start workflow is hit, it's gotta be going through everybody. As well, the two main terms when it comes to your catalogs are going to be, are you working in your preview catalog, also known as next for the most part? So this is where you make your edits, this is where you make your changes, and these are what will eventually be published out to the live catalog. So those two terms are used very, very similarly. Sometimes there's kind of that nice little overlap where, okay, we've made it to the point where it's been published to the preview site, the admins have checked it out, it's been reviewed, we're feeling good. Now we're going to move it to that live site. The big thing to note is once a catalog has been published to the live site, not a preview site, to the live site, at that point, it's typically going to be switched back to the CAT admin only, which means that if you're a page editor at that point, if something does need to be updated, you are going to contact your admin team. So, a few different weird things in those timelines, but general rule of thumb is if what you're working on is on your live site, assume that the admins probably are going to have to make additional updates from that. And I was talking about that workflow. We were talking about that start workflow button. Really, what does that mean? What is that doing? So the CAT workflow is generated when you hit that button. So at that time of submission. And what it's going to do is going to follow a linear path through all of the set approvers. Now, that being said, if you're looking at the bottom of a page that you've edited, it's going to show you a preview of that workflow. I will show you that in the actual catalog. What's really cool is you're going to know exactly who it's going to and exactly what order. And if you are checking on it throughout time, if you're like, hey, my page still hasn't been approved, I haven't got a notification, and you're looking, you're not going to have to do a massive search to figure out who it's sitting on. You're going to go to that page, you're going to look at, okay, it's in workflow. Where is it sitting in workflow? And you will be able to see who has approved it and who it's waiting on. Once it gets through all of the approvers, that is when your page will be considered fully approved, and therefore it will be able to publish. Ooh, and there's the last thing with this. So while a page that you have actively edited is going through workflow and waiting to be fully approved, the last fully approved version is going to be the one that's visible. So whatever was there before, if the page existed, is still going to show content. It's not going to just come up as, a 404 error not found. Anytime a page has been previously in the catalog and has pre-existing content, that pre-existing content is what will show until your new content is approved and published. And when reviewing a catalog page, what are these people doing? Well, they have three options. First off, they could make edits. If there is something that a specific role is supposed to include for information, whether it be a table they are responsible for building that you are not, they may make those edits when they are doing that review and approval. Once they've made those edits, they could go to option 2, which is approve. Now, if it is just a general reviewer who does not have any edits to make, they are going to be doing one of two things. They're going to be A, just approving it and sending it on to the next person, Or if they're the final step in the workflow, they're going to be the ones who are like, yep, we are good. This is going live. If they don't like what they're seeing, they may go with option B, which is rolling back. And what a rollback is it saying, hey, something wasn't quite right or we're missing something. Please either update this or include such and such information. The good news is if you are the one receiving a rollback notification, it is going to include a comment, and that comment is going to let you know, hey, this is what was wrong. This is what we need to have fixed. Otherwise, without a comment, approvers can't roll back anything. And then here's the big one. Note it, write it down if you don't have it already. This is pretty standard, same date as last year, but the deadline for your catalog edits to be completed and submitted to workflow is February 28th. So keep that in the back of your mind. Make sure, I just like to say, general rule of thumb, if you have the time now, get it done now, just for a couple of reasons. First reason being, let's say that you do miss something, or that it is decided that additional information is going to be needed for whatever section that you are in charge of. Well, that means that you have plenty of time to get that notification, get that information, and be like, oh yeah, I can get this updated and have it once again submitted with plenty of time for that deadline. The other thing is, I myself know I have done this where let's say that you kind of forget about a deadline, you forget it's the 28th, and maybe you have PTO planned. So you go on PTO and you come back, and what used to be a 3-4 week deadline is now next week. So the last thing you want is for it to kind of just get pushed to the back of your mind, and then to wake up and realize, oh, I have to have 10 pages updated, reviewed, and submitted to workflow by, next week, next Monday, and it's Thursday. You don't want that. I've always found that the sooner I get something done and the sooner I really truly don't have to worry about it, the happier I am in the end. And then we do have some resources for you guys. And I'm going to open these up because this is actually the last point in the PowerPoint. Everything else we do in a site. Now, I'm actually going to be using what we call a development site today, which means it's going to be an exact copy of your site, but it's not your site. So everything I do in there is just for training, is just an example, and I'll be deleting it after the fact. So if I'm on your page and you're like, wait a second, why are you touching that? That's not a tab. That's not what that should look like. Please stop. Don't panic. Don't fear. It's not your actual page. It's a fake page. But at any point in time, when you are working in your catalog, if you're like, hey, I know I've done this before, or I know I've seen this, or I've heard it, I'm just not 100% confident I'm doing it right, or it's not turning out the way I want it to, that is where you have a couple of options. Well, one, if you feel like maybe I showed it to you or you have seen it in a past training that there's a recording available for, you could go and look for that recording. But me personally, I am more of a paper person. I like to see something. I like to have an actual, written out directions, so I can kind of work through those directions one by one versus trying to follow along with how someone else does it. This is especially true in our software because, well, the final product should ultimately be uniform across the board. Everybody's going to approach their work in a different way. Everybody has different styles. So the way I do something may not be the same style that you would necessarily follow. But when you have directions that tells you, hey, these 5 things have to happen to get this outcome, sometimes that's better. So if that's more your jam, we do have what's called the CourseLeaf help site. And I'm going to hope that will open and let me in. Perfect. I'm actually authenticated for once. Crazy. So when you go into the help site, it takes you to this page. Also, fun fact that along with upgrading to our more recent version of our software later this year, we on our side have been working on basically rebuilding this entire site. So if in like 6 months you log in and you're like, yo, this is not the site she showed me. You are correct. It will look completely different. In my opinion, it'll be better and easier to navigate, but this is what we got for now. So when you come in here, what you're going to be going for is you're going to be going for CourseLeaf support and knowledge base. It doesn't need to log in. 1 second. It will require you to authenticate in. So if you see that, that just means that, oh, go back to your next site, make sure you're authenticated. And you're going to go for that CourseLeaf CAT. When you click on that, it's going to give you a drop down of a whole bunch of different options. So for example, one of the things that we're going to look at today is we are going to look at, let's see here, what's a good one? I want links. I want links. Here we go, about links. So we're going to be looking at linking today. If you want to see some written out instructions for linking, you can go to that CourseLeaf CAT. You can look in that nice long drop down and you can find about links. And this is going to talk to you, or this is going to tell you how to link to an email address, how to link to an anchor, how to upload a document and add a link. And once you direct down, it will give you those step-by-step directions. So if this is more your style, if this is what you prefer to work with when you are doing your work, then absolutely utilize this site. There's lots of good information. And kind of going back to that idea of some people may prefer videos. We do have video options as well that are going to be a little bit more precise than what we talk about today. Today, we kind of touch on quite a few things momentarily, but some of these are going to be a lot more specific, a lot more detailed to a specific set of tools. So if you do like videos more and you just kind of want to get more knowledge and more information, these are a great reference point. Now, if you're looking at this going, do I have to bookmark this link? Do I have to save this link? Well, here's the cool thing is once we go into, hold on. Sorry guys, the Zoom bar is taking up my entire top line. I don't use Zoom too often, so this is fun. There we go. So it's gonna be really cool is when you get into your site, you may directly go to the very first page of your catalog. But if you just do your general access, it may take you to this nice, lovely menu. It's going to show you a system snapshot. That snapshot's going to give you its own set of information. But from here, you can also get to that left site. What you would go for is in that top right, underneath your versions of software, as well as the edition that your catalog is currently in. You can click on Help. It's going to take you here. It's going to be like, hey, welcome to Help. This site's being retired. So really, by the time we get our new one up, it's our third. It'll be our third site. So we'll have retired 2 of them. And for some reason, our first one that was retired will probably still be the one that directs you to our new one. I don't know. This is outside my scope. I'm just a trainer. But when you click on this, please go to, it will take you to that main page. It will take you to that CourseLeaf support and knowledge base. So that is the nice and quick way to get there. Otherwise, for the most part, you're not going to have too much to worry about on this page. The big thing is going to be, let's say that out of curiosity, you're just like, hey, how many pages are currently, still waiting? Well, when you click on this button right here, what it will do is you'll see pages in process, not yet started, and you will see current users. So this will indicate who are the owners of these pages, what are these pages, when was the last time these pages were touched, because what this is indicating to us is that these pages themselves are currently just static. They have not been reviewed. They have not been either pushed through if no changes are needed, or they have not been updated and started in workflow if changes are necessary. So we've got 818 pages in this catalog that need to be reviewed and need to be started in workflow by February 28th, just from this first slide. But that is not all the pages that need to be started in workflow and pushed through the actual review process, the actual approval process. Because over here, the second tab, we have 330 pages that have been modified, but the workflow hasn't been started. So that means we got 330 pages over here that have had some form of edit completed. But this would indicate that maybe whoever made that edit has not officially signed off on the edits that they have made. So therefore, they have not started them in workflow. So 818 plus 330. So we're looking at just over 1100. So just under 1150 pages that have not been started in workflow. Our next tab, workflow started, first step. So these ones are in workflow. Great progress. Fourth little tab over here, that 27. Okay, these are in workflow. And if it says in workflow, so we got 36 pages in workflow, but 9 of them were just started. And then we have 7 pages that are done. So 7 pages in total have been updated. They were started in workflow. They went through workflow and they are fully reviewed. So that's that main set of information that you guys can glean off this page. Otherwise, most of this stuff is going to be for your admin team. Most of it you're not going to be able to do anything with. But let's go take a look at the actual catalog. And we have a couple of options for that. So one, we could just clear out the CourseLeaf part and we could just go to that home page. Otherwise, and my personal preference is I would use that system snapshot. And let's say that I want to find all the ones I know I'm an owner for. I'm going to use that current user. And when you click on it, it will change how it is ordered. So either alphabetically from A or alphabetically from Z. And then you can look for your role. And let's just say that I want to take a look at the philosophy pages. So I see philosophy here. I see, okay, as an ASPNP owner, I've got 4 pages that have not yet been started. Once again, a couple of options. You can click on one, and what it will do is it will directly take you to that page. It will not open it in a new tab. And then from here, you can start your work. You can do your review, work through each tab, top to bottom, double check the information, double check the formatting, so on and so forth. And once you've done that, let's say that you do your review and you realize, you know what, no edits are needed. Everything is perfect. My courses are here. My minors are showing up. My faculty didn't change. This page is good to go. Because sometimes you might have pages like that. That's what we hope for. We hope that the changes are going to be minimal, but it is still important to do that full review. So if that's the case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit start workflow. And now, okay, it's in workflow. We're rocking. But let's say that I hit that start workflow button and oh goodness, I realized that philosophy, neuroscience, psychology, P&P is supposed to be bolded. Well, let's open up that edit page body. Let's highlight that. And we're going to use just like Word. Like I said, if you've ever used Word, you're going to be familiar with most of these tools on the top. We're just going to bold it and then we're going to hit OK. So now we've made that change. But you'll notice it didn't reset the page. It didn't restart in the workflow. The reason it allowed that is because we're in that first step. So catching it sooner rather than later is better because in that first step, no one's reviewed it. No one's approved it. There's been no changes that have not been reviewed and approved at this point. So again, just really be sure before you submit an item in workflow, because if it was later in that workflow, that's when you are looking at that potential of, oh shoot, we have to restart this approval process. Awesome. And we'll look at this information in these top and bottom toolbars real quick. That's just what you can do by doing the click from the menu. If you have been working in the catalog forever and you are very confident in what you own, you can directly navigate to them using the right-hand nav bar. You can also use your search functions. For the most part, what's really great about this is that the system is designed where if you are not an owner or you are not an admin, you can't accidentally ever do something you're supposed to do. So you are safe, you are protected in that regard. So never panic. You quite literally will likely not be able to break anything. I say that as someone who has definitely messed up sites before, and I don't know how all our internal sites. It's our sites we're meant to break. But I get bored and I play around with stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm messaging all my developer friends saying, "Hey, our training site isn't doing this anymore." And they're like, "What'd you change?" I'll be like, "I don't know, about 27 things. Here's the list." So that's a little bit different from what you guys will be able to do, which is nice, which is recommended, which means you never have to ask us for help if that's the case. But we did that. We started in workflow. Now let's just take a look at what shows in that dashboard. Again, I'm so sorry. The Zoom toolbar is just very big. There we go. Scoot it out of the way. So when I look at this page, it is still showing that, but that's because I didn't refresh it. So I clicked it, it opened up that new tab, but that main page is still static because it hasn't been refreshed. So when I refresh it, it will reset. But okay, now we got 817 pages over here. Sweet. I'm gonna look for that PNP. Scroll. Probably should have gone from one higher to the top. Philosophy. There we go. So now the next time that I look at philosophy, yes, philosophy pages, that's different. Philosophy neuroscience. Oh, these are different. No, they're not. Not crazy. Oh, these are different. Okay. I accidentally went to the graduate and professional one. That's the other thing. Whenever you're looking at something, double check a couple of things. Double check either the breadcrumbs. Your breadcrumbs are going to be these little guys underneath your page title. So Bulletin, undergraduate arts and sciences, fields of study, so on. Or you can double check what your relative URL is, because that's going to indicate to you if you're in the correct location, if you feel like something is off. Because on the surface level, I'm jumping between these two and I was like, wait a second, there's something different, but we have the same title. So graduate versus undergraduate. So I need to find the undergraduate pages because that's going to make a difference. There they are. So here are undergraduate philosophy pages. There were 4 previously. Now there are only 3. That is updated. And then when I take a look at this, this was 27. Now it's 28. There are 28 pages in workflow. So it is going to actively update as items are moving through that workflow process. And even the page itself, though. So I have created a new tab in the computer science and engineering program. And what I'm doing here is just a training tab. Now, how did I get that tab? That gets us into our tools from our top toolbar. So when you look at this, right off the bat, we're going to see owners and workflows at the very top. That is going to be something that you guys are not going to utilize. If you are just a page editor, that is something that the admin team would utilize if there needs to be an adjustment in a page owner or in a workflow process. Now, how can you tell on this page who is a page owner and who is in that workflow? Well, that's where the bottom toolbar comes in. So some of these elements do really play off of each other. In the very bottom, we see, okay, page owners is CSE owner. And then workflow, we can see all these steps, but if you don't like this view, or if you are curious who is assigned to these roles in workflow, you can actually go over to the workflow colon. And if you hover over it, you'll see it says preview workflow. When you click on it, and a new window is going to pop open and it is going to show you, okay, what is the workflow? What are the steps in the workflow? Who is assigned to these roles? And then what email is going to be receiving notifications. So in this case, it goes copy editor. Then we have a couple of FYI steps. So if you are an FYI step, it is, as you would guess, not an actual action item. It just is going to send you an email that says, hey, this item is in workflow. You can review, you can take a look at it if you'd like. But this is just so that you don't actually have to do anything here. So FYIs are just for your information. Action steps are going to be notated because they're not going to have that FYI that follows them. So the copy editor actually has to do something, and the CS registrar has to do something. Then after that, there's another FYI email. Then the bulletin editor would have to review and approve it, Julie Kennedy, and then bulletin final. And within this, we can see who those members are, what that member says, and then what or who is getting the email. So in this case, all members are getting it, all members are getting it. Julie Kennedy is the only one who's going to get this email. If it was a role, because sometimes the email can go to a specific role, if there are multiple assigned, then it would indicate that as well. So you never have to question who exactly is involved in the approval process of your pages. You can see it directly from that workflow tab at the very bottom. And then next to it is Manage Tabs. And Manage Tabs is how I created my new tab. So what you would do is you would click on it and it will open up a new window. And you can kind of just do a side-by-side comparison of what shows up on your page versus what tabs are available. So we have faculty, majors, minors, courses, training. Now let's say that during your review, your field of study no longer includes any minor options. That's something that's been decided that in the 2027 year, minors are no longer going to be offered for computer science and engineering. So you don't need that tab at all. You have a couple different options. You could go into that tab and delete all the information, or if you just want to completely clear it out without having to take multiple steps, you'd go into that Manage Tabs. You would find that tab that is no longer going to be applicable, and you can hit delete item. Now, you do have to make sure that you verify you want to delete this item by hitting OK. If you don't, it's going to stay there. But I'm going to hit OK. And then you'll notice this updates and I am no longer seeing minors. Well, if we are only offering majors, do we want to keep that name? Do we want to change anything? I'd say we're probably fine to keep it, but let's say we did want to update the title of one of these tabs. Within Manage Tabs, we could come in here and we can change the name. So let's say instead of training, I want this to be stuff and things, because this is talking about, actually, I want it to be items, because this is talking about essential items, all this text that I dropped in. So I hit OK. I gave it just a second, and now my tab is updated to items. Well, one thing just to know is that if you do update an existing tab, the ID is not going to change. And that ID can be important if you want to limit any of your PDF visibilities. But for the most part, it's probably okay if you want to make a minor change like those. So that's what we're doing with Manage Tabs. Now let's say we create an entirely brand new tab. So new item, and we just changed the other one from training to item, so let's call this one training now. We click OK. And there is our training tab. But you'll notice, you're not crazy if you're like, wait a second, is that not letting you click on it? It is not. So even if I go and republish the page, it's not going to mysteriously work, and let me get into it. And the reason for that is because if you have tabs that do not contain content, you don't want them to be able to be navigated in. You don't want to be getting 20 emails from students saying, hey, I was trying to look at the faculty offerings for this particular program, and every time I open the tab, it's just blank. There's no text, there's no words, there's no knowledge, nothing like that. You don't want that. You don't want a bunch of emails saying, yep, nope, we'll update that as soon as possible. So if information is not available, it is not going to be, as you would guess, visible. But how would we make that visible? How would we make it something that can actually be opened? Well, at the very, very top, once again in that top navbar, if we look on the right, we will see that we have a whole bunch of these little pencil icons with names that correspond to the tabs. So this is one way to manage your tab information. The other way is if that tab has been populated, if you can navigate into it and you can see edit courses, majors, items, all that good stuff when you click into it. That is your first way. But in terms of training, we don't have that option. We don't have that edit training on our page. So what we have to do is we have to go to that top nav bar and we have to go to training. And that is opening up the same as the old one. Oh, hold up. If you ever get something like that where you're like, wait a second, my information is repeating, you're going to want to double check your IDs because I have a feeling my ID auto-populated because I didn't change it. So let's just do a quick little test. Let's just see what happens if I change that. Look at that. So what just happened there when we look at our manage tabs, and we look at items and we look at training, the ID is the same for these two tab options. So that's a no-no. We don't want that. So we're going to say goodbye items, training, we're going to keep you, items, we're going to bring you back, but we're going to give you your own unique ID. So that is also something to keep an eye out for, is you don't want to have duplicate IDs in the same page, or you get some weird stuff like that where they recognize each other as the same. And then you're like, oh, wait, what is happening? I just updated one tab and they both updated. So pay attention to your tabs. And now when we open up items, there we go. Nothing should come through. And don't worry, I saved that info. So I was ready. I was prepared to remove it. Just got to change a couple of things. This is the one thing I should have copied first. Perfect. Okay. So now we've got training. Now we've got items. We have different info between the two. And training, let's say that we delete that test because that's clearly not the actual information we want. We click OK. And now test goes away. When we open up training and we put any sort of text in, it will then be available. Done. That's what's going on with those manage tabs. Then next to that, create subpage. So this is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be essentially if you're looking at a child page. So a child page would be a subcategory to the page. Don't need to worry too much about that. Admin setup. So this one you guys are not going to actually have access to. But then page body. So when we look at these tabs and we look at the options over here on the right, we see faculty, majors, courses, training, items. But we don't see that overview one. So this overview one is actually the auto default name for just the page body tab. And this is what's going to open up your main page. This is where that information is going to be put in. Now, let's say that you don't want your first tab to be called overview. Let's say that you wanted it to just be description. So what we would do is we would have to create a tab and we are going to name that field of study info. We'll just do info. I'm going to click out of that and then I'm going to make sure it's going to be the very first one. I'm going to click OK. Nothing's going to show up here. Well, let's just say I don't want overview. Overview needs to go away. So I'm just going to do a fun little thing where I'm going to take all the information. I'm going to make it all disappear. I'm going to go to my field of study. I'm going to drop it in. There's my field of study info. Faculty, majors, courses. Do a quick little republish. Do a quick little refresh. And then the next time that I look at this page, this is the information that I'm going to see. You will notice that overview tab did go away. So just like all of your other tabs, they will disappear. The main difference is that the overview tab, page body, is not going to be able to be deleted from managing tabs. That is always going to be an option. It can always be put back to the rotation. It can never just be deleted. You can delete the information from it. You can't delete the option because this is that default use. So if your page does not have any tabs, you are likely just using page body. Then we have next to it show differences. What is show differences going to do? Well, when we click on that, it is going to show you everything that has been added or removed since the last time it was approved. So I deleted all of this overview information, so that's why it's in this crossed out red. As well, in field study info, I added all of this information, so we're seeing it in green markup. Faculty, I didn't change anything. Majors, I didn't change anything. Now, the one thing it's not going to account for is if you delete tab content, it's not going to show that tab because that tab is gone. But training, added that. Items, I added all of this information. And then courses, I didn't change anything. Now, if you're looking at this going, well, wait a second. Your training one used to have the information that's now in items, but it's not showing that that was deleted. The reason it's not showing that was deleted is because I've been actively making edits. Well, it has not in workflow. Well, it's not been approved. So it's just going to show the difference from the last approval to its current state. So what it's presently showing, it's not going to show every single change that you make during that inactive period where you're just modifying it, but not actively saving and submitting all of your changes. So that's that main difference. And then next to it, we have accessibility, and accessibility ties into our ADA compliance. It ties into the ability for screen readers to function correctly in terms of navigation elements. And what that means is when you click on accessibility, what it's going to do is it's going to give you a report and it's going to say, hey, here's some warnings about items that may not be correct. They may not read correctly if someone is using a screen reader. They may not navigate. They may not jump appropriately. So the one downside is it doesn't tell you the exact tab that it is coming from if you have multiple tabs. So that's where familiarity with your content is very important. In this case, if this is acting as a heading, it should use a heading style. 1.1 categories of daily essentials. Well, I know I just created that, so I'm going to go to my items. I'm going to find what's talking about, and there it is, 1.1 categories of daily essentials. So if you look at the rest of the structure of my setup, it's looking like I'm kind of following some nice general formatting. So I'm going to have to update that accessibility because it is correct. I don't want it to not follow the way the rest of my page is going. And if you're looking at this going, okay, is there any difference really between, 2.0 and 1.0? When you're visually looking at it, sometimes you look at stuff and you're like, that looks different, but it's also really early or really late. It's a Friday, like these look different. One of our great things that you can do is you can use view as PDF. That's going to, in a new window, in a second, it's going to show you what the page information that you're looking like is going to show in a PDF, which also matches that formatting. Because some of this formatting that's in place isn't going to be visible on the page directly. It's only going to be visible in the PDF. And that's intentional. But faculty, okay, we're seeing we got different highlights, we got different characteristics, we're seeing different color coding. Okay, our courses are showing up a very specific way because of how those are added. But what I really want is I want to take a look at this. Okay, so 2.0 and 1.0 are different. So 1.0 actually matches 2.1's formatting. We don't want that. We want this formatting to be identical. We want the 1.0, we want the 0.0s to be match. We want the 0.1s and 0.2s to match, so on and so forth. So that's a really nice, quick way to double check your formatting directly and be like, ooh, something did look off and I don't like this. And then training items. So new tabs are notated in that red. So that would be something we couldn't necessarily change, just something to pay attention to. Then also my opening information is this weird formatting and I don't like it. So I would also want to fix how the very beginning of my items tab is formatted. So I'm just going to close out of that. I'm going to pop into edit items and I'm going to make some formatting changes. And how do we do this? Well, we use all these lovely tools available to us at the top, primarily focusing on either format or styles. So formatting, we're going to follow a typical order, heading 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and onwards. Most of the time, you'll probably be between a 2 and a 4. So in this case, this needs to be a heading 2. And let's say that because this is a leader, I want the rest of these. I want all the point O's to be heading 3s. So 1.0 is technically correct. So I'm going to work down the list. I'm going to grab all of these and I'm going to make these all heading 3s. And just to show you what happens if you have a weird arrangement of orders. So let's say we have a heading 3 followed by heading 2 and there's no text in between. We can double check and we can see relatively quickly because that might be correct. This may be something that we intentionally want for some reason. When we check accessibility, you will see that there may be some warnings about it, but in this case, this could be assumed to be correct. So this is why on top of using the accessibility report, you should also be doing the full page reviews. So 1.1 still isn't right. They're still mad at me about 1.1. So let me give that heading 3, or actually I want heading 4 styling. And then somebody take a look. Okay, no issues found. So that's always a good start. But then again comes in those visual cues. So I know it's still not right. I know I need to update some stuff, even though technically, based off its formatting, it believes it's correct. 3, heading 4. And just work down the line. And once you've done this a few times, it becomes pretty second nature. So now I'm looking at this. Now I'm liking what I'm visually seeing just on, the basic level without getting into any additional information or leveling. I'm still going to do a quick check of the view as PDF. And go down to that bottom section because that's the one I'm changing right now. And when I look at this, I do like this formatting much better. So I'm good there. Now getting into this actual information. When I hit edit items, what are some other tools that we got going on here? Well, let's say that under categories of daily essentials, I want to actually link each of these items to a specific page or a specific navigation point. We have a few different options. So I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. And for functional tools, let's say that I want to link this to about Washington University. So I'm going to just open this one up in a new tab because I want to just make sure that I get this URL correct. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy just the relative URL because this page is in my catalog. So I want to link that first item to a page in the catalog. So what I will do is I'm going to highlight functional tools after I've copied that relative URL. Now, if you know your relative URL, you don't have to copy, but I want to make sure I get it right. And then we have this little guy up here that says link. When we click on it, it's going to give you a few different options. Link to a URL, upload a new file, predefined links, what's going on here, link properties. Do we want to open a new window? We can make those decisions. So I want to do a link to a URL. And again, it's just the relative URL. So it's just that / WashU /. And I do want it to open a new window. And I'm going to click OK. And it's going to be in this red highlight that when you hover over it will indicate you can click on it. Now, on top of that, I also want to have a link to how to apply to WashU. So in this case, because this page is outside of my catalog, I need to make sure I copy the absolute URL, which means the whole URL. So I'm going to copy that guy, and I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to highlight where I want this to be. So worker hobby supplies. Again, we're doing some crazy examples here. And I'm going to drop in that URL again. Again, it's going to be the absolute URL. I'm going to click OK. And then when I'm looking at this, let's just say that, my sentimental objects are some of my sentimental courses. So for example, I use English 100 every single time I do a training pretty much in our dev sites. So English 100 is sentimental to me. So I'm just going to drop in English 100 here. And this is going to be a little bit different than a link. What we're going to be doing here when we want to have course information available is we are going to drop in what we think the course name is. So I think it's English 100. Not 100% sure, but we're going to find out. And then we go to this top, we're going to be looking for this guy right here. It's got some lines and a little arrow. When you hover over it, it says Insert Edit Database Field. So I'm going to click on that. And you're going to see, okay, English 100 course, English 100 not found. So I do not have the correct course. But panic not. Because when you double click on it, what it will do is it will give you the opportunity to either do a quick add. It will also give you the opportunity to find the course you're actually thinking of. So I know I want English. Okay, English literature. I think we're getting closer here. And oh, look at that. It looks like you guys use 4-digit codes. And there's not an 1100, but we do have an 1101. So maybe that's the one I was thinking of. So we're going to grab elit. And in this case, I'm just going to do a quick little check, make sure there's no other codes that match up more with what I was thinking I wanted. I'll just do one last double check of this list. Doesn't look like there's any other versions. So I want elit 1101 instead of English 100. And I was able to find that very quickly by using that inline course search function. Now I'm going to know elit 1102 and show you what happens if you do have it correct. I'm going to click OK. And just like that, sentimental objects elit 1101 is not an option. I have another course that I want to notate as being sentimental to me. And that's going to be that elit 1102. So now I've typed this one in correctly. When I highlight it and I use that edit database field, now that one immediately will come through correctly. And if I'm looking at this going, my formatting's different, always pay attention to what's up here. I want this to be normal text. So I want to make sure, oops, deleted it. Here's the nice thing, this system has an undo. I want to make sure I highlight this whole section and I notate it as normal. I would still just want to double check how that comes through on my page. So it is looking a little bit weird, which just means I need to double check my PDF and I need to double check my page formatting. Now, functional tools is also highlighted, but when I click on it, it will take me to that page in the catalog. And then my work or hobby supplies will take me to that outside page. And when you're looking at it, that one did it in the same tab. There we go. When you're looking at it, you'll notice, okay, this one's got that highlight, and this one has that little, hey, this link goes out. So a couple of different warnings going on there. And then with this, I would just want to really try to fix this. So I really want my formatting to make sense. I'm not sure why it's being super picky with me. So I'm going to try re-adding it that exact same way. Having it in line looks like that did the magic trick for me. And then I just would say, and 1102. So sometimes you might have to play around with something once or twice to get that visual appearance that you're going for. The other option with this is, let's say that I just want these to be the subject and subject number. So I can just double click on it and I can change that information. So double click, what format do you want? Set that formatting and it will go through very quickly. So double click, format, here are all the different options. And when you're working with them, you can try selecting each option and seeing what comes through. As well, the last type of link is, let's say that personal care questions, we want them to go to a specific person. We can do a link for those. This just has to be carefully set up. So I would highlight what I want to link. And let's say that we would have a text where it's like, for personal care requirements on campus, please contact Bree Remote, please contact me. So let's actually just put that right in. Please contact Bree Remote. Maybe I can spell my own name. And then I'm going to highlight my name. I'm going to go to links. And I'm going to still do link to URL, but instead of having an actual URL, I'm going to type in all lowercase mail to, so MAILTO, and then I'm going to do colon. If we're not looking at my quick ads, you will think that this is the first time I've ever done it. So mail to, all lowercase, colon, and then whatever email you want to be opened when someone clicks on it. So I click OK. I'm going to save this. I'm going to hit OK. And when I click on it, what it's going to do is it's going to go to my preferred email browser, which I actually don't remember what's on here. Oh, it is Microsoft for me. Cool. And it's going to open up and it's going to start an email to, well, myself. So that'll be good. So who's it to? Add my subject. Who's it from? All right, and then just a few other things going on in here before we wrap everything up is when we are looking at these options, so we can save, we have our text information. So big thing to know is earlier I did do a copy and paste, and the only reason I was able to do that is because I was doing catalog information to a catalog page. If you are copying and pasting information from outside your catalog, ensure that you paste this plain text and then modify your formatting. If you don't, 9 times out of 10 when we have PDF issues, they're related to the source code, which is this guy. So you can see the source code. If you ever get bored and you're like, hey, how does this all work? Check out your source code. But when something is copy and pasted without being pasted as plain text and without using our tools to format it, and that is when we start to see that source code breaking our PDF generator because it's using unrecognized symbols. So there's a little bit of the techie side to it. Otherwise, you can search throughout a page to find stuff. You can do a replace just like Word. We love it very, very, very much. You can also kind of do these breakdowns and see exactly what our formatting is. So that's a super quick way, along with that visual check, along with that PDF check. If you want to be like, hey, what is this? Without having to click through. Bold, italicized, underline. So we all, I'm sure, are familiar with those. So we're going to bold, italic, and underline. We can also have notes added in. I was like, that's the word I was looking for. So you can make items or you can do little indicators to footnotes if you would like. If you're going to use footnote though, that's when we're looking at formatted content. So we do have this nice, lovely drop down of all sorts of formatted options. So when we get into here, rule of thumb, if you've used it before, you're probably going to keep using it. If you're looking at something going, hey, what is that? Well, on your page in a new tab that you create as a throwaway, it never hurts to test out each of these to become more familiar with their general setup. But for the most part, you can always reference previous parts. So course information, for example, is going to be that structured content. When you click on it, it is actually what we call a course block. And that course block is going to be all of the courses being from a certain level for whatever is selected. What this could also be is, let's say that instead of using the course block, we use a course list. So the course list is going to be different because it's not going to automatically generate these nice course descriptions. What it would be is it would be a drop down selection of whatever you grab from any subject code. And then it just shows up as this nice, easy to read list with just that subject code and number, the name, and then the hours. Now, that being said, if you do utilize course lists anywhere in your structure, they will open into what we call course bubbles. So just to show you what that looks like, information can populate in a number of different ways. So what is showing up here would match the formatting of what shows up when you use that course block. Now, of course, when we're looking at things like the available options for a plan of study on a tab called courses, we probably do want all that course information available. So that's also something very important to keep in mind. But let's say we're looking at a specific program, look at that. That's where we're going to be utilizing those course lists. Those are going to be all of those courses that apply to those programs. And then just to kind of round it up here in the last couple of minutes, and kind of focusing on that information just a level deeper. So we have course lists and course plans and course blocks and course descriptions per course. Play around with them and also double check what your guys' internal policies are. So for example, a course block and a course description set are going to give you essentially the same results, but there's likely a reason you guys utilize the course blocks, and that may be the fact you can recognize the different levels of courses versus course descriptions typically run off of the difference between an undergraduate or a graduate. Program requirements and course lists are going to look very similar, but program requirements are actually going to be connected to a secondary location. So there's lots of these that are very, very similar. And that's where it becomes the most important to make sure that you are aware of what your institutional policies are. And if you're not, reach out to Jen, reach out to your admin, make sure that before you are making massive changes to your pages or you are messing with your structured content, that you are ensuring that you are staying within your policies. So otherwise, if you guys have any specific questions on a tool, please let me know. Otherwise, I believe Jen had a few more words for you guys.
Yeah, I can hang on for a few minutes if there's any additional questions, or you guys can always reach out to me, email or by Teams or whatever makes the most sense. And as she mentioned at the beginning, we are looking to have all those initial changes submitted by the end of February, so there's time for all the pages to go through approvals. So I think that's about it for me, unless there's anything anybody needs to know. All right, well, oh, yeah, great. Thank you, everyone.